Warning, this video is brought to you by, well, if you guys are affected by criticism of the characters, character analysis, and also if this character is your favorite character and will get hurt by some type of criticism, just to let you know, yes, this is a criticism video. And if you're still here, hearing all of this and you're still going to watch the video, what the hell are you doing? Run! Run for your life! Enjoy. Yep, we are doing this as another part 2 of Millie's undeveloped character analysis, where her character development is non-existent. In fact, I did talk about in part 1 where I brought up the idea, ideas where Millie's character could have been influenced with traditions and norms. Because since she is from the Wrath Ring, it could have actually been symbolic where she would be pressured enough to do something that maybe she didn't want to be, and only to kill because she loves to do that all the time, not because she has to be labeled as somebody as angry that she is so that she can prove a point to everybody else. However, that was during the time of season 1, most of it, and now a little bit of the other episodes in season 2 with unhappy campers and such, and also this is also going to be about season 2. Yes, I actually did do more analysis with season 2, and I basically couldn't find anything based on when Millie was around. I mean, yes, these episodes were supposed to be the shining episodes of her character development, but let's be honest, it's not. Let's be honest, it's truly not. And the reason for that is because season 2 was mostly about other characters. I mean, yes, the main cast, yes, I get it. Blitz, Moxxie, Stolas, but, Fizz is in it. Okay, yeah, because Fizz was Blitz's best friend. And also Asmodeus as well, because he's gonna be important later on. Oh, wow. Oh, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We're not gonna talk about that in this video, are we? Because this is about Millie. Let's not get off track about that. But instead, in season 2, yes, it is true, we were mostly focused on Stolas and Blitz since the end of season 1. It was a huge cliffhanger on what was gonna happen between the both of them, which I do have a lot to say about, by the way. However, we did get an episode about Moxxie and his own backstory of where he came from and why he never brought it up. And also his relationship with Chaz, which in that episode, Millie came in extremely angry because she bumped into him and Chaz was bragging about a lot of things that I don't think I'm gonna bring up because Chaz is a creepy dude, I'm not gonna lie. However, later on when Chaz introduced himself and Millie confirmed that yes, remember that ex I was telling you about, only to confirm that yes, Moxxie dated him as well. I'm gonna bring this up because this is something that I know it is a Moxxie episode and it's about his backstory, but it could have impacted Millie because that is also, come on, that is her husband and she has to be involved because that is his wife and all that if Millie's gonna be involved in other cases as well. What was my nitpick and my criticism for this part is the fact that they gave a backstory of how Moxxie and Chaz met. Yes. However, when it came to Millie just didn't have that sort of thing, and I feel like her whole backstory with her and Chaz could have been introduced when she was given a flashback in the beginning when she was angry, telling about how, her ex was bragging about all this stuff, and then given the backstory of how they met, and only covering up Chaz's face, only to be revealed later that yes, that is her ex as well, the same as Moxxie. But no, instead, they gave it to Moxxie, and left Millie literally behind closed doors in the shadows. I get it. This was Moxxie's, moment because this was his episode. But I feel like it's a bit unfair for Millie at this point because yes, they both dated the same dude, and at least they could have had some different backstories on how they met this guy, and it would have been funny on how Millie met Chaz, and then later on Millie probably broke up with him because of how much of a creep he was all this time, and also a huge cheater, as he did state. I mean, I get it. The story goes nowhere to explain further depth to Millie's parents, probably this whole thing where I did explain back in my other video where they probably didn't want her to date anybody else from anyone else outside of the raft ring. But if we have to pick on how Millie was back then and also guess on how she was during the time when she was living with her parents, she did probably hit the fact that she dated other different types of imps in different rings instead of imps in the raft ring. And I'm gonna say this, just like I said in my last video, I'm gonna say this because if we're gonna do this whole world building thing, I'm just gonna say this once and for all, because if this is going to be a world building thing, like I said again, oh, the reputation is so great, don't you think? The fact is that we could have probably had a dating history or something about that. Like I said, a lost episode at this point, where Millie dated imps within her ring in the raft ring, except these types of dates, these types of imps basically treated her so bad because it's basically the normality or some stuff like that. I mean, is this about world building at this point? And also because nowadays, I'm not gonna lie, it's always been like this, just like back then. But come on, I don't think love exists anymore, and probably Millie had the idea of that and was probably giving up on love at that point until she met Moxxie. But let's be honest, if I have to give an idea of why they would have treated her so bad in these relationships, it's because Millie is a badass. And pretty much when Millie did participate in these festivals along with her boyfriends within the raft ring, she basically took away their thunder and all that, and that is why they treated her really bad, to the point where Millie has to leave, or they would basically break up with her and she would be heartbroken because, come on, she met expectations over and over, not only for her parents but for them as well, and for them to leave her because she stole their thunder is really hypocritical, don't you think? This would have given Millie the sympathetic depth that we could have felt for her, where we did prove to our significant others that we are trying to be enough, but when we do meet those expectations, it just shows that, yeah, we are also the hypocrites as well as we are, to be honest, and other people as well, which is something that we can relate towards Millie and give something about her character, which is why is the only reason why she chose Moxxie, because Moxxie would not basically treat her like this, just like her other exes, Moxxie loves her for who she is, and loves her because of her personality and because she's very strong with her hands, which is something that even though they have differences within how they fight, they still love each other. Which is also can impact Millie's character on why she's always defensive and she doesn't take shits from other people, and not even from her own parents, even though she is nice to them and she loves them with all her heart. But also there could be those types of moments where Millie does get to her breaking point. And it shows that these exes that could have actually been introduced in Millie's life, at this point, could actually have proven that there will always be times where somebody will be in a worse situation, of course, where it could have pushed Millie to the extreme, to the point of the extreme, where she doesn't only end up hurting them, but also killing them in the most possible way, because she does like that, because it's in her norm and all that. But also when she realized that these exes that she dated in the past, when that norm gets used, they also could have basically left her because of that, even though she has proven a lot, and to the point where her exes would be scared. What I'm trying to say here is a lot, but let me explain with a much more shorter description from what I'm trying to say. Millie using her norm as, being not only a badass but also using killing with your own hands in the most extreme ways possible could have made her exes, not only leave her or something like that, but also probably get to the point where Millie should be labeled as dangerous in the entire raft ring, to the point where these rumors will be all along not only the raft ring but in other rings as well, where she would have to be left alone with nobody to basically be like her partner. And also maybe we could have seen something like an ex telling her in her face that she will always be alone because of how she is and because of how she was raised, even though that imp ex of hers could also be a raft imp as well, which could label him as hypocritical and Millie calling him out for it. These moments we could have actually relate to Millie, where we were giving our expectations and knowing who we are, to the point where we would basically get these expectations to prove to them a point that they can be more than they look, except it doesn't get towards that point. What I'm trying to say is that Millie's norm of killing, just because of her anger, is the norm of the raft ring, and if an ex from the raft ring sees it as, extreme, it would be hypocritical within their world building. You see what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to use world building and character conflict with relationships and hypocrisy. That gives a lot of drama. But also, let's not forget, if this is the point where they would go for her, then she will be labeled as one of the most dangerous imps out there, and also from the raft ring. Then it turns out that they may want to get rid of her because of that, and she has proven over and over that she will get rid of them first than they will ever get rid of her, and has proven in the X's and O's episode when she defends Moxxie and also rescues him as well. But I do have a lot to say about that episode, not gonna lie. And also, this could have actually conflicted with the fact that, yes, her parents may have known Moxxie's backstory of where he came from, and which is why they also don't Millie's parents overhears them that they're going to the Pride Ring in order to kill the IMP, and especially Millie, which would put Millie as a target as well as the IMP and Moxxie, especially Moxxie. However, it turns out that Millie's parents could care less about Moxxie. Instead, they will basically try to contact Millie as much as possible and also contact the community to protect Millie, in which Sally Mae also hears this as well, literally goes towards a very secluded area where she calls Millie. Millie is having, a conversation with Blitz, probably. I don't know, I'm not really completed with this whole idea. It's actually a rough draft, to be honest, but hey, bear with me. Just say Millie and Blitz and Moxxie go out clubbing after a kill along with Luna, and then Millie gets a call from Sally Mae saying that Crimson's goons is heading over to the Pride Ring in order to kill Millie and Moxxie. Well, Sally Mae mentions that they will kill her, but not Moxxie, because of course Sally Mae could care less about him as well, which would put Millie in a very difficult position of what is going to happen. I mean, she actually has to be the one to tell Blitz and Moxxie and Luna the fact that they would have to put their jobs on the pause because they have to deal with Crimson, and this would actually put Moxxie in a difficult position as well as Millie. Millie has to be the one that has to prove everything to them that she can take care of it, but instead this time we could see other characterizations that would put Millie to the realization that she cannot take care of everything. If Moxxie and Blitz go into it and tell her, listen, we will protect you, that is the end of it. Especially Moxxie, of course. This short could have actually foreshadowed a possible episode of, the next time that we see Crimson and his goons versus IMP. Instead, this would also be important towards Millie because, Millie is probably gonna go out of her way to try to beat these goons, but instead she gets almost killed in the process, to the point where, yes, I will bring in Luna into just for the kicks, because of course she's barely involved, and also would strengthen Luna and Millie's relationship towards each other. I wanted to be proven a point that yes, she did actually save a Moxxie back then from Crimson, but only this time it could be the other way around. It could be the other way around where Blitz and Moxxie would protect her, and also Moxxie would be the one to front his dad this time, because this time Millie does not make it out because of course she's a very close-minded person. She actually thinks that she can actually beat every goon in her way because she's known as the unstoppable, of course, but instead this time she almost gets killed by not only the goons but also Crimson, which will unleash Moxxie in a duel with his dad because Millie got hurt this time. Now you're probably wondering, we're talking a lot about Moxxie and not Millie. How did this make sense towards Millie's character? Well, let me explain that right now. We were always getting every episode probably towards the time when they get, action and all, when they go on for a kill, or, when they protect Stolitz, and, I'm not gonna lie, I barely saw any episodes in season 2 about that, not gonna lie. It was always about backstories, other characters, and what campers, in which I am confused when people say that it's a Millie episode, but it feels more or less a moxxie episode because moxxie was in charge of the hit. Well, he wanted to be in charge, but Millie already figured it out in like 2 seconds as soon as they got into the living world. However, I am so tempted to say that this episode was more of a Barbie episode, you know, the twin sister of Blitz that everybody forgot about. But hey, we're not gonna talk about that just yet. I mean, I do have a lot to say about that, despite Barbie only appearing in Unhappy Campers. This entire episode was not a Millie episode, no matter how much I say it. It felt more like if Millie's, character trope, one of her character aspects of the show was non-existent, where she wants to be someone that is important when she is someone that is important, but we never seen this type of trope or weakness where she doesn't feel important to herself, in which we will get into in a bit, because guess what? I'm bringing up the other episode, Ghost Fuckers. I mean, these 2 episodes, I'm not gonna lie, Ghost Fuckers was a little bit better, but I kind of feel like these 2 were very mixed up in its own way with Millie, the way that Millie does care for others and all that, especially her husband, but also we never got to see Millie, pair up with Blitz, only this one time, probably, with Blitz at this point, because she's always with Moxxie. But, well, all I have to say in Unhappy Campers, because I'm not gonna lie, I did actually try to watch the episode again, only to realize it actually felt like a rough draft to me. I feel like Millie, well, I don't really know, because it doesn't give me a reason to actually feel bad for her that she wants to be somebody important. Instead, it could be replaced on she wants to do something that she probably liked in her childhood, and we could probably see a backstory of Millie where she did try out things that, like, I don't know, play the electric guitar and all of that because she's into rock or something. I mean, yes, she is pretty much into that rock genre of music, because we did see in season 1 in episode 2 where Blitz was blasting, Mustangs something, I don't remember the song. And you could see that Moxxie was not a big fan of it because it was loud and all that, but Millie was having the time of her life, which means that she's probably into that type of music. Instead of Millie focusing on something like, well, I want to be somebody important, it could have been replaced, like I said, to something that she would want to do other than fighting. Like I said, breaking the norms and tradition is something that she probably thought about but had to keep it to herself. In fact, we could have probably seen this after, during the time. I have no idea. Like I said, these are just ideas that pops out in my head of what Millie could have been, but also what could have actually impacted her character to have a proper backstory and also proper characterization. So this idea would probably be another short idea, but like I said, oh boy, like I said, shorts did not start probably after the whole thing with Fizz. Well, which episode was that? Oh yeah, the whole thing with Mammon on that part. Instead, Millie could have actually told of Moxxie that she shouldn't be, she shouldn't actually be the one to be stuck into the normal tropes that everybody else wants her to be. Instead, she would want to have fun at her job. And also, yes, this isn't not only an attention thing for Millie, but also the fact that she is actually getting attention for a different reason, and it's something that she would like to do. I mean, yes, she did actually perform that time with the whole guitar thing, which was a very cool performance. In fact, I actually did quite liked it, but I could have actually felt for her if we were given a proper backstory, and probably the whole short idea, the short episodes idea, not only being just another trope of another adventure, but also backstories of what could have been in each character. But unfortunately, I kind of felt the same way with Ghost Fuckers when it was released around Halloween. In Ghost Fuckers, Millie basically expresses her concern for Blitz because she realized that, oh my gosh, the bird and Blitz are not together, even though they never were. But instead, yeah, Stolas basically ends the deal off with Blitz, and they can't have a proper communication, in which it lead to Blitz having coping mechanisms that is really not healthy, because apparently he spends money on horse plates and also tells Luna, who is sleep deprived, to burn all of the owl plushies. I don't remember the episode, but I do remember poor Luna wanting to sleep and eats everybody's coffee. The fact that Blitz here was, a bit overmuch, because he tells Luna that she couldn't go home until she burned all of them. I mean, that's a little bit too much, not gonna lie. And even Millie expresses concerns over this. I mean, yes, Millie does go and see Blitz eating ice cream and watching telenovelas of horror and is obsessed with somebody. I don't remember her name, not gonna lie, but I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty funny. However, we get to see that Millie is not going to take no for an answer when it comes to him being left alone. Instead, Millie is actually the one urging him to basically do his job, because guess what? Blitz isn't paying Moxxie and Millie. And not only that, it turns out that Millie just found out that their company might go bankrupt. It's not good news. And also, they're not in a very good living situation. I mean, we did see Millie and Moxxie's apartment before, only like a little bit of the scenes. I mean, one in the pilot, and there's another episodes in season 1. I think it was the Harvest Moon Festival, when Blitz literally just jumped on their bed and purled because he called Moxxie if they wanted to go to the Harvest Moon Festival in the raft ring. Let me just tell you, it's not a very good living situation. In fact, they live just like us. Not gonna lie, calling out for those who are trying to make a living, not gonna lie. This is a very bad situation we're in. And of course, they get a client, and it turns out that this client wants to get rid of some ghosts. And of course, Blitz is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like in the novella. It's actually a show, I'm not gonna... What did I say, a novella? That is so... I could be. Anyway, so they basically go to this haunted hotel or something, and Blitz is, he is, screwing around, He's screwing around, not even taking anything of this seriously, and pretending like he's on a show. But Millie is, he's actually not having it. She's not having any of this. In fact, she actually cares for the company. In fact, that's the only thing that we're given here in this episode, is that she cares for it because she loves doing what she's doing. But not only that, but come on, where in the world is the freelance money at? However, what we got in a character trope from Millie is that Millie is such a caring soul. She tries so hard in this episode to convince Blitz that, hey, let's not screw around and let's actually be serious about doing this, because we're not only going to lose the company, but we're going to lose on what we work hard for, which is practically the same thing, but you're not getting it through your head, are you, Blitz? And she doesn't want Blitz to basically be crying over something like this when Stolas was kind enough to give them the freaking crystal from Asmodeus. I really don't know if she even brought that up. You see, this is why I'm so confused with her. If she was the one that would convince Blitz that, hey, everything's gonna be fine, we have a crystal, and this crystal, you could actually travel towards other places in the living world. And not only that, Stolas was kind enough to give it to you? I mean, come on, man. Also because they're in the lowest class of hell, which means they would have to do servant stuff because of, they would have to work for a royal or an overlord or whatever. The world building is getting to me in this video, and I need to stop. However, in this episode, I was rooting for Millie because she had every right to be upset at Blitz, and I was like, oh yeah, tell him off even though he's the one hurting. I mean, I would understand. I mean, listen here, I have a lot to say about the both of them, but we're not talking about it right now. I mean, yes, she should be calling him out for basically choosing his coping mechanism on spending the company's money and not choosing to pay his employees. But here's the thing in the episode where I was, kind of let down, I'm not gonna lie. And it's basically the backstory of how she met Blitz. However, bear with me, I actually kind of did like how Blitz met Millie at a bar in the raft ring, you know? Apparently Millie stole his, like, kill or something and all that, and you could see how much she has changed from that time to now, which would explain to me, like, why couldn't they do this whole trope where she looks like a softie rather than the one, you know, back from when she worked by herself as a mercenary in the raft ring, you know, versus how she looks like she will cut your head off in an instant if you literally breathe an inch of, you know, the atmosphere of where she is. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, like, she literally changed so much from looking like she can kill you in seconds towards somebody you can have fun with at your job. But I do have some very nitpicks and problems with this flashback. It actually felt weak. Now let me explain. I mean, how she met Moxxie was also, something else as well, because, I mean, yes, Moxxie is one of the most important, top up there. Moxxie is very important to Millie. You would have thought we would get a proper backstory of how they met and how they built their own relationship to the point where they got married. Because it seems to me that ever since she met Blitz, it felt more as if Millie and Blitz working together while Moxxie stayed with Luna. It felt more like if Blitz and Millie would have ended up together and much more because they spend much more time together rather than Moxxie. Which is like so confusing because the only scene we get where Millie shakes Moxxie's hand and we see him like simping over her and goes on a mission with Blitz. That's basically it what we got between Millie and Moxxie on how they met. Oh boy. Haven't seen, you know, a couple who was so much in love with each other. When we are given a scene where how they met, they don't exchange words or anything. They don't go and hang out or try to build up their relationship. No, it's just shaking hands and they're gonna end up together forever, I guess. You know, she also tries to make Blitz feel better when we see this flashback where she says that because of Blitz, she basically has a job that she loves and, you know, cherishes it with all her heart. And also because of Blitz, she has a husband. And also, here's the thing, we did get to see the important details where Moxxie proposes Millie in a song after the pilot was released, but I feel like that could have been included in the episode, you know. Maybe at least a scene of when they got married at their wedding day. In fact, I always had this impression that maybe Moxxie and Millie were married before they worked at IMP, but you know, because this is a new story, which means everything was basically, you know, changed. It turns out that they basically met at IMP and got married. However, I kind of wanted to see, I'm pretty sure most of us, we kind of wanted to see how Millie spent with Moxxie and how they developed their own relationship to the point that, yes, they got married, because I'm pretty sure they both had a common thing with each other based on what they did as a living. Hint, hint, they both kill for a living. I'm not sure if you guys remember this, but remember the idea I mentioned that it could have worked out if Millie's parents didn't like Moxxie because he's part of the mafia that has a history of drowning people that crossed his own father? Well, let's just say that I've made this, you know, thing where it's like, wow, it's gonna be a lot, but I feel like this idea could have actually worked in my opinion, but it's gonna be a long one, so bear with me. Be about how they met and what it could have been if how they met, and also given depth of their relationship because they're part of the main cast. But it looks like we could actually use that whole idea backstory of Moxxie and Millie. You know how Millie could have met her husband and how they could have actually built up their relationship towards marriage another day, because this is gonna be part 2 and the next is gonna be part 3. Stay tuned, and yeah, that's it. Alright, stay tuned for part 3.